Hi everyone, it's Venus, and Mr. Mars and I went to the movies. Thought I'd tell you about that. We went and saw 65 and Moving On. So let's start with 65, and I'll just read to you what they say about it. In the movie app, where they describe it. It says, after a catastrophic crash on an unknown planet, Adam Driver's the actor, quickly discovers he's actually stranded on Earth 65 million years ago. Now, with only one chance at rescue, he and the only other survivor must make their way across an unknown terrain riddled with dangerous prehistoric creatures in an epic fight to survive. So that's the basis of the story right there. I was able to get Mr. Mars to go pretty easily to this one because it's considered sci-fi. And call me small-brained, but in my mind, sci-fi takes place in the future. And this took place 65 million years ago when dinosaurs still roamed Earth. There were no people. And so it kind of confused me in that sense. I guess I'm just a little closed-minded about it. I never really thought about previous sci-fi, but I'm not a sci-fi fan, so there may be lots of it out there like that, and I just have not been exposed to it. But part of it was confusing because, his planet where he was from was way more technologically advanced than we are now. He had really cool tools and stuff and toys and all that stuff. So, yes, it was a little confusing there. But I think that's a really good description of the movie because that's exactly what it is. They crash on this unknown planet and they have to get from point A to point B to be rescued, and at a certain, place and time. And they have to get there through all these dinosaurs and animals, mostly dinosaurs that would just like to make lunch out of them. The interesting part about it is that at the beginning they show him with his family, and he has a daughter that's ill, and he took this job on this long transport. He's like, in today's world, you'd be like, like a long haul truck driver or something. And so he took this long transport. He's going to be away from his family for, they thought, 6 months, I think, because his daughter needs some medical care that's expensive. And I'm not going to go into any more of his family thing, but so, she's always on his mind. And that's a dog trying to get in. Well, when he crashes, he thinks he's the only one who has survived because he woke up from, it's such a long trip that he's on that they all go into that, what they call it, cryogenic, basically they're kind of frozen in time. And he wakes up from it. The thing wakes him up because he's the driver or whatever, pilot, I don't know what you call it. But anyway, he is a driver. He's Adam Driver. Sorry, it's a cheap joke. But anyway, so he wakes up from it, and he thinks he's the only survivor. And then he discovers, and he's really, at that point, it seems like he doesn't have that much hope because he's kind of no recovery, don't worry about it kind of thing. But then he realizes there's a young girl, like his daughter's age kind of, who has also survived the crash. And so that kind of changes everything. So anyway, that's what the story's about. They fight a lot of critters to get there. They use cool tools. I will say it's not my type of movie, obviously, but I mentioned I'm not really a big sci-fi person, but that movie, I was, pretty engulfed in it the whole time. There was a lot of jump scares for me. I'm kind of a jumpy person. I'm one of those people that if the waiter comes up too quietly behind me and says, "Is there anything else?" I go, "Oh," But there were a lot of jump moments for me. There were a couple for Mr. Mars too, but for me, there were a lot of them. So yeah, I think, I don't know what the overall feeling about the movie is. I'm guessing that it probably gets a fair, C plus B minus B rating kind of thing. Yeah, it's not really an A movie for me. I mean, I'll give it a thumbs up. I don't regret watching it. But what I will say is if you're interested in it, I would see it in the theater. I would not because it's, the best sci-fi movie ever made. It's not that. It's just, I think it's a movie that you need a big screen. And you know, maybe you have a home theater that it's fine. But yeah, I don't think it's a watch it on HBO kind of movie. I would prefer, I think you get a better effect in a theater than on a television screen. So yeah, I would give it a thumbs up. Do you have to rush out and see it? If you want to see it, I would go see it before they move it on. I don't know how long it'll stay in the theaters or if it'll come back. That's the weird thing about the theaters I go to. Something runs through and then it's gone and then they bring it right back maybe 2 weeks later. So, but that's good because, you know, you miss them. You got other things going on. So anyway, Jerry liked it. So there you go. We both did, and, you know, for different reasons. He likes that type of movie. And for me, it's because I think they did a really good job of keeping me involved, and there was action all the time, and everything they did kind of made sense. It didn't really, there was no like hanging or anything. Maybe the end was hanging. They could have added probably another 10 minutes to the movie and kind of showed the resolution. Because in my mind, I know what I think happened. I'm not going to say anything, you know, because I don't want to spoil anything. I know what I think happened, but it would have been nice to have that validation that that did happen or didn't happen. So, next movie was called Moving On. Not Mr. Mars type of movie, although he didn't dislike it. And let me read to you what they say about it. All right, so they basically say that, you know, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin were friends, but they're kind of estranged, but they reunite to seek vengeance on the widower of their recently deceased friend. This is they were all college friends and roommates. Along the way, Fonda's character reunites with the great love of her life, Richard Roundtree, and each woman learns to make peace with the past and each other. Not completely true, but maybe working on it. It is not a comedy in the normal sense. I would call it a dark comedy. It has some very funny moments. I laughed out loud lots of times. And especially with Lily Tomlin's kind of deadpan, you know, straight to the point kind of. And then I think Jane Fonda, who isn't even my favorite actress, she does a good job of showing a repressed person, I think. You know, someone she had an event in her life at the hands of her deceased friend's husband that impacted her whole life. Everything. And so she's built up like almost 50 years worth of whatever. And they even allude to her dad having, you know, not been a nice person too, and then to have this event. Anyway, so she's pretty victimized by men, and it ruined her marriage with Richard Roundtree. And then even when they kind of get back, well, I'm not going to say a lot more, but it's ruined her ability to be in a relationship. So yeah, the premise of a movie is a little tough for me when there's a planned attack on someone. But I had to remember that this is a movie. It's more meant for comedy, although it's a dark comedy. And then what happens to the guy in the end, you know, it's hard for me to cheer on someone's demise, but it is what it is. Yeah. But, you know, does he deserve what happens to him? You know, yeah. It's kind of, you know, I don't like to wish the worst on, even if I had an enemy. I wouldn't really want to wish things on them, but it is a movie. It's just a movie. My hardest part with the movie isn't that part of it. You know, I went past all of that. There are some movies that same premise might have bothered me, but the way they did this, it really didn't. But my hardest thing with this movie is, again, it's another one of those movies that kind of introduces people or ideas or storylines, but doesn't finish them. There's a kid in there that, you know, some might say just didn't even make sense he was in there, but it did make sense to me why he was in there. And some of the things with him caused other things to happen. But and then the whole thing with Jane Fonda and her, I don't know, there's a bit of loose ends. And then at the very end, there's a guy, an innocent guy, at the very, very end in a truck. And I worried about him, what happened to him, because of the way the movie ends. And you have to see it to kind of understand what I'm saying. But I'll just say that he hit someone with this truck, strictly accidental. But he has to live with that, you know, and it's not his fault, but he still has to live with it, you know, that the guy died, you know. So, yeah, it's a dark comedy. So if you have a hard time putting comedy with a dark subject, then this might not be the movie for you. Out of all the dark movies I've seen before, I think they did one of the better jobs, though. So, all right. So I would give it, I'm not giving it a thumbs down. I would give it a thumbs up. And I think so would Mr. Mars. I didn't ask him that specific question. But he said his description of it, it was a tough movie. So there you go. But he didn't say it was a bad movie or any of that. So one of my favorite parts about the movie is that Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda are older. And as it turns out, Lily Tomlin is living in independent living of a senior facility. And so it kind of talks a little bit about that. You know, it touches on that loss of independence and, you know, senior things and, you know, how life goes on, you know, and for 50 years you have feelings or regrets, or suddenly, you know, you've been a musician. Lily Tomlin was a musician. Now you're, due to arthritis, you can't play. So I think that was all important stuff in there. If you've seen either of the movies, please comment below if you like them or not and what you thought of them. Obviously, we all have different takes on them, but it's interesting to hear other people's views as well. And yeah, give me a thumbs up, please, and subscribe to the channel. Would love to have you. Thanks. Bye-bye.